Hey, if we don't know each other, I'm Scott. I'm really thrilled that you'd be with us today. Grateful that you would make today part of your day. We are not a perfect group of people, but we are trying to be a group of people following Jesus together. And maybe you're excited about that. Maybe you're not sure what that looks like. I want to say welcome. Thanks for making us part of your Sunday morning. So I was looking at a statistic that basically suggested that at peak time in United States airspace, peak part of the day, there are about 5,400 craft milling about our airspace, right? From commercial to cargo to military, 5,400 different things up in the air. And the reason you don't hear about that 98% of the time is because there are a group of people who are tasked with trying to regulate the comings and goings of those particular craft, right? So air traffic control plays a vital role in why you hear little to nothing about that most of the time. Conversely, this was fascinating to me. There was a study by Queen's University in Ontario that was published in 2020 suggesting that you and I, not just on our stressful days, but just day in, day out, have about 6,000 different thoughts. About 6,000 different thoughts. So more than is happening at peak airspace in the United States for all of the craft, right? And this could be a thought as simple as, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to, pick up my kids. Or something more existential, like I look in the mirror and I think about a particular thing, like who is that person? Or, oh, boy, you look good today. Look at that. Go get them. Forest green's your color. 6,000 different transitional thoughts over the course of a day. But here's what I know. It is, we do not have, most of us, a well-crafted, robust air traffic control system helping us figure out which of these things should stay up in the air, which of these things should land and never go back up in the air again, which of these things we should linger on a bit and pay close attention to. What we want to do as a church community is a little spring cleaning. That's what we're here to do. When you walk into a room and you're like, I don't know what a church service is supposed to do, and I've never been part of one, and why are they singing songs, and if why are we doing stuff about serving the community? It's what all of this is sort of rooted in for the next couple of weeks is some spring cleaning. To walk in the invitation we celebrated on Resurrection Sunday, which is that the love of Jesus is inviting us to experience a different way of understanding how to love and be loved, and to participate in a different kind of kingdom with a different kind of hope. Something more profound and beautiful than the invitation and grind of a city like the one in which we live. Even if we love the city of Baltimore, there's a more profound invitation in the love of Jesus that if we're honest, a lot of us just miss because of the clutter in our life. Okay? So last week we looked at this idea of how does the grace and mercy of Jesus speak to those moments where we know we've done something wrong or we've been wronged and we got a thing that we're feeling because we've been wronged. How does the grace and mercy of Jesus help us carry that from a healthy place of conviction without moving to a condemnation spiral of shame? The if-onlys and the shoulds that are tripping a lot of us up, candidly. And today we want to think about this from the perspective of this concept that Proverbs says so eloquently, the fear of man. What I might colloquially call people-pleasing, though it's not as simple as just what it sounds like. It's not just as simple as we had a little fight and I heard you like cupcakes, so here it's all's well, right? You like the chocolate cupcake, I made you a chocolate cupcake. We're talking about something a little bit more pervasive. I'll define it this way, and this is where we're going today. This habitual, boundaryless tendency to prioritize others' needs and wishes above one's own, to avoid conflict, gain approval, or manage others' emotions. So already there's someone, I can feel it welling up in the room, that's like getting ready to make aggressive eye contact at the person they came with, or you're like, well, this is a message for my wife, not for me, or whatever. And what I would just say to you for just a moment, gentleness, self-control, discretion, like gentleness, self-control, they're fruits of the Spirit. Kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. Discretion, the Proverbs has a lot to say about when and how we choose the words we choose. So what we're not talking about is like, let's kick down people-pleasing by being just brash and loud and attending every argument we're invited to, right? So like that would be what the kids call an overcorrection. Okay? What we're talking about, though, is this tendency, this workaround to avoid conflict, gain approval, manage other people's emotions. Well, what's the big deal about that? The building up of resentment, the loss of personal agency, or even just the authentic opportunity for relationships. Now this is not, like, the fear of man is a snare, is a thousands-of-year-old deal. So this isn't just another one of those things where I can say, well, hey, this is all a problem this is all about the smartphones. This is a problem caused by the smartphones. This is, I said this last week, if you experience this or have felt this in some form, it's maybe proof that you're not a chatbot, right? Like it is proof that you are human, like to feel a sense of, hey, we've got these conflicts, we've got this dust-ups, we've got these leadership burdens and responsibilities. How do I enter those spaces with some kind of leadership, but don't get sucked into the anxiety of the room? We can find examples in the Bible. Aaron and the golden calf story comes to mind. We can look at Pontius Pilate, who like deflects, to look good for his, like the people that are over him rather than to do the right thing. I want to call you to 1 Samuel 13 because I think it's a story you don't know, and I think you're not going to enter the predictive text. And it doesn't mean that I don't think that you know the Bible. I just mean it's a deep cut. It's one I've not heard preached before prior to today. And I feel like I listen to a lot of sermons. So 1 Samuel 13 is where we're going to be. Let me tell you where, it's page 193 in those green Bibles. If you don't have a Bible, take that with you, our gift to you. Walk out with it. You're good. Also going to show up on the screen. But if you want to show up and look at the scriptures with me, page 193. We're going to work through this text. The era that we're in this Israelite history is the early days of Israel having a king. Now, they wanted a king because they wanted to kind of be like everyone else. Everyone else has got a king. We want a king. God's like, yeah, I don't know if you need a king. We want a king. We want a king. And so God gives them a king. That's an overly reductionist theological treatise, but that is what happens. And God gives them this guy Saul, who on the outside looks the part of a king. Stately, sturdy, kind of dripping with all of the king-like qualities. And he's a military guy too, so he can win battles, because that's one of the features of being one of the ancient kings. And so on the surface, it looks like this would be a really good deal. And out of the gate, he gets this really good start. He's commissioned and crowned at this place, Gilgal, which matters because look at where this story takes place. And off we go, right? Off we go. But what happens in Saul's story is right out of that initial good start in that honeymoon period, we begin to see a pattern. And you can predict maybe the pattern you're going to see based on the topic I've already introduced. There's a guy named Samuel in the story here who's a prophet priest. His job is to not be the king, but be a spiritual advisor to the king, to help the king walk in the wisdom that he's committed to walk in. Part of being crowned the king of Israel is to carry a particular burden in a particular way, and the goal of Samuel is to help Saul do that and to hold Saul accountable when Saul does not do that, right? So look at the Philistines are this group of people who are the neighboring army, their neighboring enemies, and here they are mounting up for a battle. Okay, so read this, verse 5. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven, When the Israelites saw that their situation was critical and their army was hard-pressed, they hid in caves and thickets, among the rocks, in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained in Gilgal, and the troops with him were quaking with fear. Pause for a minute. So Saul begins with doing a thing like that he should have done. Like, he reads the room. Like that's what leaders do. Like, you've got some leader in your life that isn't reading the room, and it's driving you crazy. Saul correctly reads, like, okay, we got these chariots mounting, the Philistines are coming, like, this is a bad situation. I got army men, like, crossing the river, hiding in thickets. There's a lot of fear. So at least out of the gate, what does he initially understand? We have a problem. Something is wrong here. So he doesn't have, like, bravado and courage and charisma and, like, oh, I'll take care of this. He gets kind of sucked in, actually, to the energy of what's happening in the moment. Now, apparently, we're going to learn this in just a moment. He and Samuel, who is not there currently, have pre-discussed. Like, I'm going to see you on the seventh day. I'm going to be there on the seventh day. It's going to be this particular time. That matters. That information matters, because otherwise this reads like it's contradicting itself. So check this out. Saul, waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. Okay, so pause there again. Like, I think Lord of the Rings. My mind goes to Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm gonna be there on the third day at the end of the prancing pony, right? Like it's one of those kinds of deals, right? I'm gonna be here. We'll figure out what to do about these Philistines. The time comes, the moment comes, and Samuel's not there. His spiritual advisor's not there. The anxiety is increasing. The fear is increasing. That maybe something is stirring in Saul here. Like, wait, has Samuel, like, pieced out on me? Like, what's going on here? And what does he do? He does the burnt offering. Okay, I don't know how deep into, like, Hebrew lore you are. That's a no-no. Why? He's not a priest. He's not a priest. But he plays one on TV, right? He steps into the situation and functions as a priest, which, given his king and military leadership stuff, is a messy, messy metaphor for the people. But that's what he does. He steps into and enters that space. So his workaround, his attempted solution is, well, I'll just do all this priestly stuff. How hard can it be? And then when the Philistines attack us, like, we'll be, right, we'll be crossed up, we'll be good to go, we'll be prepped. What have you done? Asked Samuel. When I saw that the men were scattering, Saul replied, and you did not come at the set time, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. We learn a lot right here. Like, this is the verse that is the verse where we're connecting the dots for what's actually happening in Saul. Like, first of all, we go like, well, you were the one that didn't show up when you were supposed to show up. So somebody had to do the offering. Where was Samuel? Not here. We had not sought the Lord's favor. Now, this is just, again, I'm not trying to go Bible nerd on you. Like, this is a place of spiritual significance to Saul. Like, this should be one of those places. Like, maybe you got a camp. Maybe you got a mission trip that you've been on. Maybe you had some Sunday at the Foundry. Maybe you went to the Pentecost celebrations last year. Like, one of those places in your life where, like, God showed up and stirred in you. Like, man, I felt something there. Like, this place should be one of those places for Saul. It's where like, the commissioning of him as king, the burden of responsibility was placed upon him. And yet, like, we had not sought the Lord's favor. In other words, we hadn't done, like, the ceremonial offering. There hadn't been the ceremonial pre-war prayer. Somebody had to do it. So I felt compelled, right? I read the anxiety. I sensed the fear And rather than call them to courage, rather than call them to faith, rather than assure them that you were going to be here, I overfunctioned. I played the role of priest, even though I'm not one. Samuel says this, "You've done a foolish thing. You've not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought a man after his own heart and has appointed him ruler of the people because you have not kept the Lord's command." Samuel left Gilgal, went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him. They numbered about 600. You have to see here, and this, you're going to have to kind of trust me if you don't know Saul's story. Like, this is not a one-off. You know, like where like, oh, you get a 98%, but that 2%, man, like you're grounded for like 6 months. Like you, mister, we get 100s around here. Like there's a pattern that had begun to develop in Saul. You are not seeking the Lord. You are seeking, like you're thinking about your status. You're thinking about your prowess. You're thinking about your perception. And to quote the great Admiral Akbar, "It's a trap. It's a trap." Right? Like you are getting sucked into, you're not what Edwin Freeman would call a differentiated leader. Like there's anxiety and you're catching it. Like you're not providing a solution, you're getting sucked into the anxiety and it's killing you too. So we need a man after God's own heart who's seeking the presence of God in our story. Now look, if you read Saul's account, there's plenty about him I find unsympathetic. But this one I'm like, bro, I feel for you. And this is why I preach this text. Because I actually think, similar to Saul, you can relate to there are messy situations where the list of solutions doesn't exactly feel clear-cut, easy, 1, 2, 3 formula, off we go. I mean, this is one. What do? Your men are scattering, people are panicking, you feel like it's all, and that is a real situation that shows up somewhere in your life, academically, relationally, parent, wise, neighbor-wise, culture-wise. I mean, somewhere you feel that tension, don't you? Of there's terrible situation in front of me, and I want this person to calm down, or I want this situation to be okay, and it's that workaround. It's that workaround that we create to sort of, put out the situation on the surface, but not deal with the things that are stirring up in us, or the things that may actually need to be addressed. The fear of man will prove to be a snare. Why? Because it looks like it's gonna, what do traps usually do? There's some sort of enticement. And what does this entice? Those of us that are man, I just want this thing to go quickly. I want it to be smooth. I want to look like I know what I'm doing. I don't want to say I don't know. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to be a burden. And whatever of those is kicking up in you, that workaround that you might create is where that fear of man or people-pleasing thing might show up. Again, it's not just, well, you get smaller and people get bigger, and you make chocolate cupcakes because they want chocolate cupcakes and you like vanilla. That's not it. There's something more insidious there, that habitual pattern, that workaround, which is what had begun to happen in Saul's story. So sometimes when we read the Bible, we can treat it kind of like a fable, and we can go, hey, now here's 3 things that we're supposed to do because we're going to be like King Saul. That's not one of these texts. So what we want to do instead is to go, what is the love of God in this story, in the presence of God, as it relates to showing up in Samuel and what Samuel is saying, where God is trying to direct the people of Israel, where God is even trying to call a new leader in David. Where is that showing up? Where is God's presence showing up here? Because the invitation that Jesus gives in the Beatitudes is blessed are the peacemakers, right? Not the peace fakers, not the peace breakers, but the peacemakers. And people-pleasing kind of works in those false pieces. Let's fake, or let's let's break, let's break from a thing I actually need to say or a conversation I actually need to have. What is God's love inviting us to consider here? God's presence inviting us to consider. First, I would offer to you the ability to learn to lead ourselves, even as and I'm speaking to a room of leaders when I say that, right? I don't mean this, I'm not being sarcastic or glib. I mean, the people in this room do things that matter in the lives of people. To your kids, to your neighbors, to the city of Baltimore, to the cancer research that you're doing, to the emergency room you show up in, to the classroom that you teach in. What you do matters. But what's true in all of those spaces is that there's anxiety, and there's anger, and there's fear, and there's rage, and we just tend to show up in those places and struggle to man, I just hope I don't catch it. I hope I don't catch their cold. I hope they don't get their stuff. And what the love of God is inviting us to do is kind of, if I go back to the air traffic thing and the flight attendant message, put on our own mask so that we can assist others. Jesus is a master of this, right? We often will say things like, if everyone else would just, then I could blank. Where does that show up in your life? I don't want to answer that question. No, thank you. No, thank you, says Rocky. No, thank you. I don't want to answer that question. Jesus, like I said, was a master of this. Check this out. You're important. I do mean that. I'm not you do important things. You are not, I would argue, more important than Jesus. I think that would be a bold claim. But functionally, I think it's how we live, and I live, and you live, and all of us live. Verse 15 of chapter 5 of the Gospel of Luke, the news about him spread all over the moor. The crowds of people came to hear him be healed of their sicknesses. So just similar to Jesus, you're not Jesus, but similar to Jesus, what is the reward for being good at what you do? More of it. People want more of it. They want it louder. They want it scaled. They want we did 4%. Let's do 6%. We get 200. What do we do to get 400? I mean, that is, yay, capitalism. Right? That is a thing you live in, isn't it? That is a pressure of actually people trusting you and caring about the things that you do. And that was happening for Jesus. Look at verse 16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And I know this room is allergic, as am I, to prayer being the answer to heavy and hard things in the world. There's heavy and hard things in the world. Thoughts and prayers. It's a workaround in some people's response. It's a deflection. It's not a deflection for Jesus. It's actually, how does Jesus process all of the business, all of the things, all of the meetings after the meetings, all of the heavy and hard things Jesus is facing? By stepping out of those situations to step into being able to separate perceived pressure from real responsibility. Those workarounds that we create often reinforce these if-onlys and shoulds that we talked about last week. We reinforce them in people, and they reinforce them in us. There's something to stepping out of the matrix, so to speak, and going, okay, how do I exist or show up into a space where I know there's going to be really tense things, really hard stuff, things that are going to tempt me to create workarounds that aren't actually the thing that's going to help the situation? In the sense of this conversation, I would say to you that from the moment you wake up, often before your feet hit the floor, you are living in reactivity. Who texted me last night? How many funny videos did I get sent? My boss emailed me. I emailed them at 11 p.m. because I didn't think that they were going to respond at 11:03, and now they responded at 11:03. And now what am I going to do about that? Because I don't want to be inattentive as a leader, but it's 11:03 p.m. and someone next to me is going, "Hey, the blue light is a little much. Can you knock it off?" We often, from the moment that we wake up in the morning, are getting into a place of reaction. So when I say prayer, when I say Sabbath, I'm not just talking about do superstitious Christian activities in order to appear spiritual. It really is a place when we read the scriptures, when we take time to pray, when we Sabbath, when we separate from our phones for a period of time. Like, I know that sounds like old man screaming at lawn, but increasingly, I don't have to tell you this, like, it is difficult when you are sucked into the anxieties around you to distinguish perceived pressures from real burdens of responsibility. And one of the things I think for Saul is that Samuel was a person that could have helped him process that, and he didn't trust that Samuel was going to show up, right? So he creates the workaround. There's something, this is a quick point, right? Like, God's presence helps us to step back so that God can step in. One of the things I do think was happening in this text is that God was trying to teach Saul something. Is that ever true in your life? That God, things that you're processing, God's trying to show you, like, not just what that other person needs, not just what would fix them, but like what is stirring up in you when you deal with this particular reality. There's something in the Israelites, there's something in Saul that, like, Samuel's absence creates like an opportunity to see the love of God in a different way, and Saul circumvents it by doing by taking the role of the priest. Like, that's often like what the real problem is. Why is the fear of man a snare? Because you don't actually want people to trust you as like the Savior. You don't actually want that, but you might create solutions where you create that kind of dependency and vice versa. The serenity prayer, which is often articulated in recovery communities, I think is so beautiful in this last line. You've heard it before. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the thing I can, and this is the one that hits me, the wisdom to know the difference. The wisdom to know the difference. Because at my best, I'm trusting God to help me know the difference. When I'm at my worst, I'm reacting to everything, hoping that like God will just sort it all out. And like that's no place to live. It's no place for the Israelites to be. It's no place for Saul to be as a leader. The last thing I'll say, we'll close here, is that God's presence helps us experience a real connection. I think that is, for whatever circumstantial reason, Samuel did not show up at that appointed time, in that appointed place, in that appointed thing. Like we are all going to have situations that go sideways from the schedule. You scheduled this, and the meeting is supposed to end at 9:01, and it's 9:03, and now something's stirring. Like, there's a sense of connection that Saul loses by circumventing this relationship, by playing the role of priest. It sabotages actually one of the people speaking to his blind spots. And I just when I think about the lie of people pleasing, we often think, I think, in this situation that we're the ones controlling the narrative. We're the ones like being the dependable ones because no one else is dependable. Melody Beatty wrote this book called Codependent No More. If you struggle with people pleasing, I call you to it. There's a 2022 edition. It's a very old book, but there's a 2022 update. She's going to use the phrase codependency, which I think is like a more habitual situation than just people pleasing. So if you'll indulge the new term, I want you to hear the tail end of her quote in particular. She says, codependency is many things. It's a dependency on people, their moods, behaviors, sickness or well-being, and their love. But it's a paradoxical dependency. Codependents appear to be dependent upon, but they are dependent. They look strong, but they feel helpless. They appear controlling, but in a sense, they are controlled themselves. And like what she will go on to say is that what it actually robs them and the people that they love of is a real authentic connection. Like, can I still be loved if I let you down? Can I still be loved if I have to tell you no? Can I still be loved if I have to say, I disagree, but let's go forward together? Can I still be loved if I feel like I'm a burden and I don't want to be a burden? Like, there's a real opportunity for connection that Saul's not trusting his blind side. And that is a problem. And it's just back to from a prayer and community standpoint, this sounds so reductionist. What is good counsel or counselors? What is a church community? If not a people that can say, hey, let's help one another, not perpetuate this cycle, but live free of it. Proverbs 29 says, the fear of man is a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. This is not deep Hebrew translation to say, that doesn't mean that life is easy. And that doesn't mean you just step out there and you say what you're thinking. Come on. That's not, we already, the Proverbs have a lot to say about timely words and having discretion with our words, and not just what do I need to say, but what could a person receive right now. But the real call to freedom is to say, hey, when we are tempted to shrink, when we're tempted to get small, when we're tempted to spiral or control, to manage all the anxieties around us, the real invitation from Jesus is to find our security and our freedom in whatever is on the other side of that snare. And I'm a pet owner, and I know it's kind of a silly and dumb analogy if you're not a pet owner, but when our dog does something that she knows that we're not pleased with, she hides in particular parts. And here's the deal, right? I can scream louder and go, Keela, get out here, you get yourself together. But there's something about getting smaller and moving closer and saying, come on out, it's okay. I don't like having my ears cleaned either. and I often eat things I shouldn't eat. But you're safe here. And I got you. And I love you. That's communion. We are not, Josh said this, he sang it earlier in the song, I don't have a context for that kind of love. Truer words, man. We don't often have a context for a kind of love that when we disappoint, when we let down, when we fall on our face, when we look like a fool, gets down on our level and walks with us. Steps towards us and says, hey, let's go together here. Let's clean this thing up together. That's what we celebrate when we celebrate the Lord's Supper as a church. That the love of God has moved into our midst, has put sin and death to shame. So we don't have to walk in shame. We don't have to walk into the snare and go, what else can we do? We can walk in real freedom. That's the invitation from Jesus, right? To not just stop it, knock it off, silly, but to say, hey, what if there's a better way to live than just getting sucked into all the reactivity and creating the workarounds? What if there's a better way to define peace? Communion is this tangible picture of where that peace comes from and how that peace meets us in our story. And as a church, we get up and we receive it. We take it out of our seat and we go back, we take it to our seat and we reflect, because there's a value in slowing down and actually receiving it in our story. Don't let it just be another workaround, just another ceremony to kind of calm the battle you're in. To really receive the presence of God in your story today is the invitation as we go to the table and receive. Let's pray together as we move to this time and participate together in the Lord's Supper. Lord, I know in my life there is a litany of workarounds I create to keep the plate spinning, to keep the peace, to try not to let people down, to try not to be a burden. The byproduct of that is I am often exhausted physically, mentally, spiritually. You have said that in you there's a better way to carry. We're not trying, God, as a community to absolve ourselves from responsibilities, but to pick up what's ours to pick up, to put down what's ours to put down, and God, the wisdom to know the difference out of your love and presence in our story. Would you help us as we come to the table and receive? In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.